At issue this Sunday morning, military orders. I'm speaking to the Congresswoman from Chester County whose office got a bomb threat after she appeared in a video urging members of the military to refuse unlawful orders. What she's saying now about what's happened since and that strike on an alleged Venezuelan drug boat. Straight ahead.
But when it involves your family, obviously crosses the line.
After 2 tough losses, someone vandalized the home of an Eagles assistant coach. What's fueling this kind of behavior? We'll get perspective from a sports psychologist. And heating help. As temperatures drop, bills go up. Ahead, the program that could reduce your costs.
NBC10 at Issue starts now.
I'm Lauren Mayk. Welcome to NBC10 at Issue. Late last month, the FBI said it was looking to talk to lawmakers who appeared in a recent video that featured them urging members of the military to refuse unlawful orders. Congresswoman Chrissy Houlahan from Chester County is one of the lawmakers seen in the video, sending a message to members of the military. President Trump has labeled the video seditious behavior. The president initially posted that the video was seditious behavior punishable by death. He later said,
"I'm not threatening death, but I think they're in serious trouble."
Congresswoman Chrissy Houlahan joins me now. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Congresswoman, there is a lot to talk to you about with what is happening on Capitol Hill, and you sit on the Armed Services Committee, which is dealing with issues related to strikes on a suspected Venezuelan drug boat. I want to talk to you about all those things, but I want to start with your safety and that of your staff, because you and I have not spoken since your office reported getting a bomb threat to your Westchester office. Have there been any other incidents or threats since then?
I think that our posture right now is to remain attentive. We certainly do continue to get calls that are worrisome and threats, and we do have protection. But I will also say that we get an enormous amount of calls still that are enormously positive and are thoughtful. And it does give you a lot of hope and faith in the American people that many people are spending time reaching out to say thank you. And so for that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I saw that you posted some of those on social media as well. Have these threats, has the communication changed how you go about your daily business and do your job?
No, it is a very short answer to that. I grew up in a military family. I grew up in a service with a service mindset, and I know that this job comes with its risks. And I know that it's a very, very important job. And so even though it is a really scary and unfortunate thing to feel as though your office and the folks who work with and for you are threatened and you and your family are threatened, and that's a terrible time that we live in, that is the case, it makes me even more clear-eyed and more resolved, makes me even more confident that what I'm doing is important and worthy of conversation. And so, no, I haven't changed my mindset on this.
We learned recently that the FBI wanted to interview you and your colleagues. Have you spoken with the FBI at this point?
Have not spoken directly with the FBI at this point, no.
Do you plan to?
I don't know how this will all unfold. I think it's stunning, frankly. It's kind of staggering that 6 of us who put out a video that literally restated law, that said that if you are in uniform, you do not have to obey an unlawful order, would result in this kind of controversy and this sort of conversation. And the President of the United States threatening the group of us for treason and sedition and asking for our hanging, that's pretty stunning. And that it has evolved at this point into a possible FBI investigation says more about the president and his administration than it does about me, I believe.
And, I know you said it didn't change the way you do your job, but does it make you nervous? Are you nervous about your safety and your staff's safety?
I have always kind of moved through the world in my various parts of my career, whether in the military or in education or in business or now here in service in Washington, knowing that there are risks and rewards to all the things that we do. And so I think that my husband says that I am sort of preternaturally calm in these sorts of in situations and environments, but I'm confident that I'm doing the right thing and I'm in the right place.
We are having a lot of conversations now about actions by the military, but the video that you referred to that you and your colleagues put together came together before some of these conversations started to surface. How did that video come together? How did it start?
Sure. A group of us, as I mentioned, 6, got together and talked about doing a video like this. But it wasn't, to your point, about any one incident or any one occurrence that worried or alarmed us. It was rather sort of a buildup of sorts. And it started back in the beginning of the administration when the military was doing things like removing the JAG, and the JAG is the core of people who are the lawyers for the military, who give the advice on things like strikes on ships. And they were also firing or removing the IGs, the inspectors general, the people who are responsible for whistleblowers or for things that are, going wrong or sideways, and investigating them in one way, shape, or form. And then there were kind of a series of events, whether domestic or international, that just were worrisome. Truly, Signalgate, another example. And so, as a consequence, we did this video, to remind men and women in uniform that we had their backs, that we had their experience, and that we wanted to make sure that they knew that it was indeed not just okay, but required of them not to follow any order that was unlawful.
Were you expecting the response that you got from the president and the White House?
Certainly not. I mean, in a million years, would you ever expect that the leader of the free world, the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, would order the hanging of 6 duly elected members of Congress for stating a law? That was not on my bingo card, as they say. It was definitely not something that I expected.
Well, let's talk about the Venezuelan boat strikes that have recently been in the news, in particular a second strike on a boat alleged to be carrying drugs when there were reportedly survivors from the first strike. Do you consider that action, that second strike, to be lawful?
Well, I think what I've determined over the last several weeks, as we've talked about this, or couple weeks, and even today, as the Admiral and the Joint Chiefs of Staff have been in and talking to Congress in one side of the House or the other, is that we have so much that we need to learn and understand to really understand what happened that day over those hours, and it was hours and hours. And I think that the Congress, I'm grateful for finally seeing some amount of oversight, initiative, and movement. The Congress has that responsibility and obligation to ask all of those kinds of questions and to bring people in and get the answers. But on its surface, ostensibly, it sure looks like what would be defined as a war crime at its best. If you accept as fact that this is a war, many people, myself included, do not believe that this is an actual war, that this is actually would be an extrajudicial killing or a murder, because there is not a valid war that Congress has approved of or that Congress has agreed to. And so, yes, I believe we still have so much more information to understand and to learn. But based on what I'm hearing about today's conversations, I'm even more concerned than I was yesterday.
Do you think that the video of these strikes, in particular of the second strike, do you believe the video of the second strike should be released?
I do. I very much believe that the armed services and intelligence committees, of which I am part of both, should absolutely see those videos, all of us, not just the chairman and the ranking member, which are the 2 heads of each of those committees. And I also very much believe that it is appropriate that the American people have the ability to understand this too, because from my understanding of what these videos portray, it is something that the American people deserve to understand. And I'm really kind of thankful that the conversation about the Code of Justice and international war law, all of those kinds of things, because of the video, has sort of primed the American public to understand what they're looking at and why it matters.
On the day I spoke to Congresswoman Houlahan last week, committee leadership on Capitol Hill was briefed on those Venezuelan boat strikes. The reaction was mixed. Here's the response from a House Democrat and Senate Republican.
What I saw in that room was one of the most troubling things I've seen in my time in public service. You have 2 individuals in clear distress, without any means of locomotion, with a destroyed vessel, who were killed by the United States.
No, I didn't see anything disturbing about it. Saw two survivors trying to flip a boat loaded with drugs down for the United States, back over, so they could stay in the fight.
A defense official told NBC News the admiral saw the two survivors as legitimate military targets based on the rules for the operation.
We only had time to bring you a portion of our interview with Congresswoman Chrissy Houlahan here on NBC10 at Issue. To hear much more of our conversation, you can check out the latest episode of my Battleground Politics podcast. It's available now on the NBC10 app, on our NBC Philadelphia YouTube channel, or you can listen where you get your podcasts. When fandom crosses the line. Following back-to-back losses, someone recently vandalized the home of an Eagles assistant coach. Ahead, a sports psychologist talks about what can fuel this kind of behavior.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
And as coaches and players, we all know that part of our job is to handle criticism. And so it's perfectly acceptable to sit up here and talk about what's going on, how to fix it, what we're going to do going forward, and we know that. But when it involves your family, obviously crosses the line.
This past week, Eagles offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo spoke for the first time about an incident now being investigated by police. Someone threw eggs at his South Jersey home. Patullo has faced fierce criticism in his first year as offensive coordinator of the Eagles. In a separate incident this past week, someone programmed an electronic sign outside the link to display the words "Fire Kevin Patullo." I was there on Tuesday as a rental company towed it away, but it is unclear who is responsible for programming it. Despite the incident, Patullo praised the city, saying there is nothing better than winning a game at the link. He also indicated there has been support for his family. Philadelphia fans have a reputation for being very passionate, but when does that passion and energy go too far? Well, to discuss that, we are joined with Dr. Joel Fish, licensed psychologist and director of the Center for Sports Psychology. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Kevin Patullo, in his remarks, made it clear that criticism is okay, and it's what coaches sign up for. But what happened at his home crossed a line. As someone who can look at this from a psychological perspective, what did you see as all this played out?
Well, and I'm one of them. We Philadelphia fans are really, really passionate. We care. You have 3 or 4 generations of fans watching the Eagles, and oftentimes together. 95% that energy, that emotion comes out in us either cheering or booing. But that other 5% of the time, we are at risk that emotion comes out in a way that we're defining as crossing the line. And what we're defining as crossing the line is any kind of action or behavior that is hurtful, harmful, unethical, and can really lead to an escalation of negative emotions that can come out in ways that most of us would agree are not positive.
You know, if we take a step back, it was just about 10 months ago that the Eagles made fans very happy by winning a Super Bowl, and they have a winning record this year. Are you surprised at how quickly the mood changed after a couple of losses?
Well, when you care, like we do in Philadelphia, I think moods can change more quickly. As someone who grew up in this town, we're not used to having success. Most of our history in football and the other major sports has not been so positive. So I think as fans, we've gotten better at turning the page and looking at more of the cup half full than half empty. But there's some history there. There's some leftover baggage, if you will, emotionally, in my opinion, that makes us Philadelphia fans a little quicker to look at the cup half empty than the cup being half full, even when we've had more recent success.
You have also seen a change in how people talk about the teams they support over the years. What have you noticed?
Well, as someone who's watched and analyzed fan behavior for 25 plus years, if you listen to sport talk radio, there's a higher percentage of people who use the language of "we won," "we lost," compared to 20, 25 years ago. Also, there's so much media now that we can plug into. We can watch every Eagles game. Back in the day, you used to only be able to watch some of the Eagles games, and there's all these sport talk radio shows. There's gambling, there's social media. And so with the we won, we lost phenomena, oftentimes as fans, I think we can start to take it more personally. It's not an accident we use language of we won, we lost. So Kevin Petullo, you're doing that to me. The Eagles, you're doing that to me. How dare you let me down like this? Whenever we feel things are personal, we're more likely to react in a more intensive way. And I do think that's happening in this situation, but I think it's happening more in fan behavior in general, that we take it more personally, and so our language becomes more sharper, more oftentimes vindictive, because you can feel like you're being personally hurt.
So how do we keep things in check? And also, what's the deterrent for fans in making sure things don't go too far? Is it seeing someone charged with a crime or hearing it from somebody on the team, someone they trust? How do we prevent these things?
Well, the vast majority of fans stay within the bounds. There's no question about that. So we're really just talking about the fringe of the fan base. And when we're talking about people that can cross the line, there used to be a perception it was drunken, rowdy teenagers. It's not. It could be people like me or you. It could be adults who 9 out of 10 times in their everyday life would never do something like this. But there's something that happens in terms of sport culture, fan culture, that gives me the right to say whatever I want, whenever I want. So there's two parts to a plan. I think all of us, each of us individually, know the signals our body's giving us, and we're starting to get worked up. When we start cursing in a way that's crossing the line, when we start throwing snowballs at Kevin Petullo's house, there's usually been a buildup. And so if we know ourselves well enough, we can kind of usually nip that snowball from going down the hill and just remind ourselves with our own self-talk, hey, chill, it's only a game, stay cool. But sometimes I might have a blind spot. I might have a blind spot to realize that I'm starting to escalate in my language and my behavior. I need you, friend, teammate, person I'm going to the game with, person that I'm watching this game with, to say, hey, just remember, chill, if you will. It's a game. Just watch yourself from crossing the line. So oftentimes when it comes to fan behavior, I think we can exercise more self-control, but oftentimes we need another person to point that out to us.
Energy bill help. If you're struggling to pay your heat in your home, there is assistance available. Just ahead, the program you may be able to take advantage of.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
As temperatures drop, there is help for people when it comes to paying their heating bills. This past week, the application period opened for LIHEAP assistance in Pennsylvania. Funding was delayed about a month because of the government shutdown. PECO says the assistance is given out on a first-come, first-served basis, and they expect it to last until about April. Some tell us without the help, they would have to make some very tough decisions.
I have to maybe take food away. Because my bill $120 now was $96. That's my extra money for food.
For more on the LIHEAP application process, we're joined now by Patricia King, Community Engagement Manager for PECO. Welcome, Patricia. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So give us an overview of how LIHEAP works, who's eligible, and what steps do you need to take to apply?
Sure. So LIHEAP is an acronym. It stands for the LIHEAP. It stands for the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And customers who are 150% of the federal poverty level or below qualify. So whenever you say that, the first thing is, okay, what does that mean in real terms? So the FPL, or federal poverty level, is based on the number of people in the household and the total household size and the total household income. So for example, a household of 4 people, which is the average household size, that has an income of $4,019 a month or less qualifies for LIHEAP.
So it is getting cold. How
Yes.
long does it take for the application process to go through if you do file to apply for this?
So the application process itself, once the application is received by the state, this is a federal grant. The money comes from the federal government, and I'm happy to announce that the government has released the funds to the states, so the states now have the funding. That application process, once they receive it, is a couple of weeks.
Okay. If someone is in a crisis situation and in danger of having your heat turned off, what steps can people take? What would you recommend people do?
So the first thing that I always tell people is contact PICO. A lot of people think, okay, well, I owe that company money, so I'm not going to contact them. And that's literally the opposite of what we want you to do. We have a lot of different assistance programs to offer our customers in addition to LIHEAP, but I want to focus primarily on LIHEAP right now. But the first thing you want to do is contact PICO, and we can give you all of the options that exist for that customer. But in speaking about LIHEAP in particular, you bring up a really good point. And I want to make two things clear here with LIHEAP. First of all, you do not have to be delinquent on your PICO bill to apply for LIHEAP. So LIHEAP cash grants, minimum of $200, maximum of $1,000. The only requirement is income. You do not have to be delinquent. However, if you are delinquent, you can get an additional LIHEAP grant up to an additional $1,000 for a maximum of $2,000 per customer.
All right. Well, Patricia King, Community Engagement Manager for PICO, thanks so much for joining us and for sharing this information with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, New Jersey and Delaware also take part in LIHEAP, and applications are open right now. We have more information on how to apply for assistance in your state on NBC10.com. And there is also other help for people dealing with the cold. Just ahead, the effort to make sure every child in Philadelphia has a winter coat and how you can help.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
As temperatures drop, Philadelphia is launching a major winter coat drive. The city is partnering again this year with Krause's Coats and local unions to collect thousands of coats for children who may not have one. The goal is to collect 25,000 coats. You can donate new and gently used winter coats, boots, hats, gloves, and warm clothes in sizes from newborn through adult. Donation boxes will be set up across the city, including inside several city council offices. That does it for this edition of NBC10 at Issue. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.